Sean, my friend, how are you?
Good. How are you, Shamim?
I'm good, good. Here in New York, and you are in the UK,
Oxford.
Oxford, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is it up there? How's the weather there?
Yeah.
How is it there? How is the? Is it rainy
Yeah,
and
everything's good. It's been pretty this year in general has been pretty wet and cold, but luckily that's last 2 3 weeks have finally started to warm up. So we're getting like some 70-degree weather, some sun, and the very occasional rain. But it's been really beautiful. Everything's really green, and it's nice to get outside after having been cooped up inside for a couple months.
cool, cool. So yeah, you are a professional race car driver racing in Europe in the GB3 Championship. And some of your highlights are you have a couple of wins in the Ford in the National Ford Formula Ford Championship, three podiums. So yeah, can you tell us a little more about that? I'm not my knowledge base about professional car racing is pretty low. So
Yeah.
yeah, please enlighten us.
Um, do you want me to kind of talk about, you know, my background in racing or how I got into racing or just kind of about the Formula Ford Championship?
We will cover that eventually, but right now, what is the formula for the? Can you just specifically talk
Yeah.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So Formula Ford is a category of racing that exists all over the world. It's kind of like a really entry level motorsports for people mostly getting out of go karts into cars. That's traditionally would be the first kind of car they would get into. It's stuff that all pretty much all the greats of the sport have been in Formula Ford at some point. It used to be a much bigger thing. This it existed long before things like Formula Four existed. So you had guys like Senna competing over here in the British Championship. You even had guys like Newgarden and stuff from the States that are competing in IndyCar have been over here and competed. So it's yeah, it's no, it's not slicks and wings, which is what you would. It's a formula car, and it's open wheel, but it has no slicks and wings. So it's got treaded tires, very skinny tires, really low powered, manual gearbox, 4 speed, and yeah, it just teaches you a lot. It's the racing's really really good. There's a lot of drafting that goes on. It forces you to learn a lot about the grip of the tire because to drive that car fast, you're really kind of like you have to know where the slip angle of the tire is the whole time. So a lot of the corner, you're kind of driving it from the rear axle and like sliding, like four-wheel sliding through a corner to be quick.
Hmm.
So it just teaches you a lot about car control. And yeah, the nice thing about it too is it's a very, and everything's, it's a matter of perspective because once you get into motorsport, you really realize that it's extremely expensive. And so when I say like the Formula Ford is uh, affordable in terms of motorsport, it's still expensive. I mean, you're looking, over 100,000, usually around 100, maybe a little less per season, but you get tons of track time and the racing is really good. It's usually very close. Not super easy to run away from guys. And the nice thing about the sport is too, and it's kind of just a natural byproduct of it because the step from Formula Ford to say Formula 4, or something like GB3 where I'm racing now, which is the jump I made, the economic cost of making that jump is pretty significant. So you tend to get guys that have been racing Formula Ford for a really long time. So like when I was racing, there's guys that had been racing there for 3 4, some guys take seasons off and come back, but they've been doing it for a long time. So you learn a lot from those guys. It's really nice because you're not just racing against people with no experience. You're learning from guys that know the car really well, and it forces you to become a much better driver very quickly. So yeah, I'm just great series. Had a great team. I raced for Ammonite Motorsport, and had a lot of success, and they taught me a lot. Had great teammates, learned a lot from them, and yeah, I really wouldn't have had it any other way. Got to race some really cool tracks around England, and yeah, just really grateful for that experience. So, and unfortunately, towards the end of the year, I started doing really well. I got those 2 wins, couple podiums. Went to the Formula Ford Festival, which is a really old kind of one-off event at the end of the season at Brands Hatch, what they call the Indy track, which is the shorter version, and they have that every year. And usually there's sometimes around 100 cars that compete Formula Fords, people coming from all over the world to compete in it, and you kind of get split up into different heats. It's kind of tournament style. And yeah, I got to dominated my heat, won by I think it was like 6-7 seconds or something, and then was leading my semi, and unfortunately had a was leading the race and put it off by myself. It was unfortunate circumstances, but that was the end of my festival. But all great experience. So yeah, a lot of fond memories from back then, and yeah, good times.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible. I don't think it's an easy feat, any wild motorsports out there. And that I'd like to backtrack a little bit because you spoke a lot about your present moment, but there's also a past history. Let's talk about how we met. And I think it was 2000, end of 2019. Me and our friend, our common friend Ashish, we went to Rhythmia, and we that was our first plant medicine ceremony, ayahuasca. And
Yeah,
and I just turn around, I see this brown kid, semi-brown kid, with a white mom and a brown father, and a sister.
yeah,
That's how we met. You guys were so cheerful and open. We all connected together. Yeah, that's the beginning. And it was you who convinced your parents and your sister to join you, correct? To the
yeah,
experience.
yeah. It was yeah. It was, yeah. It was a wonderful time. I think the plant medicines, the retreats and stuff are really nice because everyone's really open. You develop a lot of really close connections, like we did, and Ashish, and um, but yeah, the whole story of how I kind of got into plant medicine is kind of long, but basically I was in university and really struggling, I was studying engineering at that time, and was always a really good student, but was struggling once I got to university. I think once school always kind of came easy to me, and once things kind of started getting tough, I think you really have to be passionate about what you're learning, or have a clear vision of what you want to do with it to power through. And I was just, kind of trottling along and looking for a lot of purpose at that time in my life, and had come across a book called by Michael Pollan, that's How to Change Your Mind, and read it, and talked about psychedelics and their therapeutic uses. Talked about ayahuasca in there, and I had never heard of ayahuasca until then, and then started listening to some podcasts and listening to people's experiences, and I was like, man, this is something I'd really love to do. But my I had a very first of all, I have a wonderful family. I love my family so much. I had a really wonderful upbringing in Costa Rica, and but I just the whole concept of going to do a psychedelic. My parents were very anti drugs and all that, which is I'm grateful for. But at that point, the thought of asking them to let me go do a psychedelic like ayahuasca was like something that I was like, there's no way. And yeah, I had these podcasts that kind of convinced me, and was driving back to school with my mom, and I was like, hey mom, I'm just gonna play this podcast, see what you think. And then she was listening to it, and she's like, wow. And at the end I was kind of like, yeah, this is something I want to do, and if you feel comfortable with it, I would like love your permission to go do this. It's at a place called Rhythmia in Costa Rica, which is 15 minutes from where I grew up. And she's like, actually, I would like to go too. and that was a shock. And then told my sister about it, and she's like, "I want to go too." And then my dad was just kind of like, "Well, if you all are going, I'm paying for it, and I'm going to go too." So yeah, no, it's funny though, because I thought I had needed it the most, and really I think everyone in my family at that time uh, was looking for a similar sort of piece, and the calling. While I think I originally got the original calling, it was through me that they also heard the call to go do it too. So it was, yeah, I'm super grateful that everyone went to do it together, and it's been a blessing, honestly.
Yeah, incredible. And then we shared, since you guys are local to Costa Rica, we shared some great moments right after. And what I really admire about you is your fearlessness. You have this
Thanks.
drive, this willingness to just go dive into the wild, into the unknown. You just go head on, and it shows up. I'm sure it shows up in, and that's one of the reason you are where you are right now, because
Hmm.
the track life is not that easy, right? You could be
Yeah.
seconds away from a collision, or or danger. And I remember we post our retreat, we jumped off a cliff, and I was really
Hmm.
scared, and you convinced me to do
Hmm.
that too. So yeah, fear is an interesting element. So I'm curious how, because I know as a kid also you were into extreme sports, I believe. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious what molded
Yeah.
you to this path. How did you develop that this courage?
I don't really. This is not the people do tell me that. I don't really feel like I'm fearless. So to say, it's more. I like the saying. That I heard, and it's feel the fear and do it anyways. I think fear is a very natural emotion. We all feel it, but it's just about, yeah, I feel it, but I'm just gonna do it and trust that everything's gonna be okay. And I think I just have this. Even since I was a kid, it was just kind of like I've always liked doing sports. I've always liked things high adrenaline. I think just naturally I'm kind of that way, but I also really love that feeling of doing something that's scary, and then as soon as you finish it, there's just such a empowering feeling. It's kind of like that feeling, like, if you go do a cold plunge or a cold shower, and the feeling you get when you're done, like, you don't like necessarily initiating it, but once you finish, you just feel so good. And I think maybe that was more the driving force initially when I was growing up. But I think now that I'm getting older and more maturing more, and especially since I've gotten into plant medicine, I've just grown spiritually every year and really stepped into my spiritual side. And I think now more than ever, um, I think especially in a sport that I'm doing now, um, you know, if anyone tells you they're not scared, I think they're not being honest. I think they just have a really good way of coping with that. And I think for me, my coping mechanism is my spirituality. And, there's the fear of like bodily harm on the track, or fear of financial damages of wrecking a car. But I think there's also, this sport, they say only 1% really makes it. So you have all these people that are spending lots of money, lots of time, lots of effort, to try and make it. And there's a high probability that they won't. And I think that can be very scary for a lot of people. I think going for your dreams in general is very scary for a lot of people because there's a lot of risk. Um, but for me, what's really been powerful is my faith. And I just have such a luckily, the plant medicine I went to Rhythmia, and ended up going during COVID and doing even more ceremonies, and really with the intention of, excuse me, what are my passions and what's my path. And I'm really grateful that I had really specific kind of visions and direction given to me. And I think I just have such a strong faith that, like, this is what I'm meant to be doing, and really trusting the process and having an understanding of that. there's not, in my mind, there's not really anything such as good or bad. There just is. So, even the bad things that happen are just lessons that are building you to be the person you need to be that successful person or achieving those goals that you have. And so I think like whenever I'm scared or doubting or have worry, which I guess are all just different forms of fear, um, is ultimately just stepping back into my spirituality and trusting in God. And I always say that worry is ultimately a lack of trust. If you're worrying, that means you don't trust the path that you're on or what's happening. And yeah, I have a strong belief that we are all God in different shapes and forms. And so by saying if you don't believe in yourself, then you're essentially saying you don't believe in God. And so by having faith in God, you should have faith in yourself and what you're doing. And of course, that's a process, and it's easy to say, and it's not always that way. But I think just having that reminder, like meditation, and always coming back to that over and over again, is the practice, and something I strive to do more and more every day. But that's what keeps me going every day, is just a strong faith that the destination is already written, and I'm just along the ride and trying to enjoy the journey, and that doing everything I can in the present moment to learn and become a better version of myself every day. So
Beautifully said. Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, it's I think if you look at the track, the loops, you could say the destination is already set. It's what your faith in each moment you're in the behind the wheel. And I really like the
Yeah.
fact that you bring it back to your faith, your trust in the process, and spirituality. That is something we all need to strive for. In given the current situation of modern society, where everything external accomplishments, validation, are more encouraged, more celebrated than inner well-being,
Mm-hmm.
because we
Mm-hmm.
only try to see what someone has accomplished on the outside, but not much what goes on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe everyone, a lot of people that have mastered life, has a lot of workings on their inner realm that they have to face fear, connect to their purpose, like you said, trusting the process. Yeah, it's really powerful how you translate that into your real life. And I'm curious about do you have what is your in the moment, what is your day-to-day life? Do you have any routines or rituals that you sort of build up on before a race or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have. I'm definitely a routine person. I like having kind of it feels like a purpose. Day to day when I'm not racing, I have kind of a driver center I go to 5 days a week, unless I'm doing 1 day karting or doing getting driver coached on a track in a road car somewhere. Then I won't be there. But I generally like to wake up around 6:30 every day. Um, and this is kind of ideal world. I think things kind of happen, and I'm really big on sleep right now. I've been doing listening to a lot of podcasts and about the importance of sleep, and I found
Mm.
that's really helpful for me in getting like your 8-9 hours of sleep. So as long as I can get that in, I'm getting up at 6:30, wake up, ideally getting some meditation in, short meditation, and then taking a shower, finishing my shower. I like to do 4 minutes cold shower. That kind of wakes me up, and then get have like some nutritional drinks that I drink in the morning. And then I just head over to Silverstone, which is where this training center is, about 30 minutes away. And there we kind of have a morning meeting where we talk about uh, John Pratt is the guy who owns the place called iZone Driver Performance Center. And he just kind of every morning gives a talk about something related to motorsport. And he's a very he's really big into mindfulness, a very spiritual person. So there's a lot of ties into that. We do meditation. Then after we finish that 30-minute meeting, I usually like to go for a 25-30-minute meditation, finish up with some breath work. And then I'll do a couple hours on the sim, and then we do different things on the sim depending how far out we are from a race weekend. There's things like mock qualies, mock races, consistency drills, drills that practice changing conditions, um, practicing setting up cars, stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different stuff we do. So I do that for 2-3 hours, and then I have different softwares that train reaction training. I do some of that on a VR. Um, there's ones on like a 3D TV where you're like, it's kind of like a mental training game where you're there's like 8 balls moving around. You have to track 4 of them. And so that's kind of training your subconscious to like track things. You kind of stare in the middle. And then there's also like eye training software. So I do all that. And then I have a personal trainer. I usually go train with her 3 days a week and then work out another day or 2 by myself. So do that for an hour and then get home usually around 4 or 5 o'clock. Sometimes do some iRacing, just to practice the racecraft. And then that's kind of what a day at iZone looks like. If I'm not doing that, some days I go and do karting, which traditionally is, in this sport, I'm a real anomaly being 28 years old. Most of the people I'm competing against are in their late teens, early 20s. And they've been in motorsports, some of them since they're 5 years old in go-karts. So, it's ironic because I'm older and, while there's value in that in terms of life experience and maturity, they have much more experience in the sport than I do, sometimes more than a decade. And so usually they all start off in karting. I do karting now because there's a lot of valuable experience to be gained in karting. And so I do that. I try to do that once a week, maybe 3 times, 4 times a month, and train with the guy named Ollie Hancock and do that. And that's been really helpful. And then do some get coached by a driver in a road car maybe twice a month. So that's kind of like what my training looks like outside of a race weekend. And then there's like a race weekend routine as well. That's getting up pretty early. Similar wake up kind of situation, but then it's getting to the track. I like to do a meditation. Mostly I do like Wim Hof breathing, breath work, about an hour and a half before I get in the car. And that tends to like ease I like to call it excitement because really worry and excitement are very similar butterfly feelings, and it's just perspective. So that kind of gets the butterflies away, gets you centered, gets you present. And then I have a pre-performance routine, which is essentially like a set of stretches and mini workout just to get your muscle and mind active, get the blood flowing, some visualization stuff before getting in the car. And then once you get in the car, for me, at least, I think it's different. All of this is varying for different drivers. For me, I just like to be very present and maybe just think about what I have to do and then try and let it go. Cause it's, once you're in the car, you really want everything to kind of be automatic. You don't really want to be thinking too much. You tend to go slower when you're thinking a lot about what you're going to be doing. So it's all about preparation and, getting all the work done beforehand so that you can trust in your training and the process, and then just perform at that point in time. So, and that's not easy either because that's also there's so many similarities in the sport to like meditation, being in the car, and not always easy to get yourself to be in the zone, what they call it, or peak performance state, flow state, whatever you want to call it. It's can be a very fleeting state. So it's it's just but that's kind of what all that looks like for me.
Incredible. I like how you how you focus a lot on the first principles, like going down to the basic, like karting, like how the younger your younger colleagues or teammates, they have their training, and you're trying to you're not leaving any stones unturned. You're trying to train yourself mentally, physically. And also, I love the way you said you also try other practices that bring you to that internal optimal state from where you can operate
Mm-hmm.
uh, in a more relaxed state. I believe relaxation is key. Like
Mm-hmm.
whenever I am even at work or preparing for interviews, because I'm a professionally I'm a software engineer. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever I'm preparing for an interview for a few job, even if I know the basics right, if I'm feeling a sort of a bit of anxiety, it's really hard to put my mind at ease. But when I come to a state
Mm-hmm.
of relaxation, things flow. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Wim Hof is really powerful. I used to do that years ago. I think we did it a couple of times in different
Yeah, I
settings
was
as
gonna
well.
say, I think actually my first time actually doing it was with you and Ashish.
Yeah, yeah. When we come together, we create something beautiful, right? I remember our times in Costa Rica in
Yeah,
the mornings. Incredible.
yeah,
And yeah, flow states. I like the fact that you brought into flow states because one of the precursors to flow states from some of the books written by experts is you have to be faced with something that's challenging, but something that you can
yes,
overcome. It's not
yeah,
it's not it's not at that level that you cannot do it, but it's somewhere in the middle.
yeah.
Once you overcome that, you reach that specific zone, I believe. And I think it's very similar to what you're describing. And also the time I remember jumping off the cliff in Costa Rica, our
Mm-hmm.
post ceremonial days. I felt as soon as I jumped, overcame the fear, and then boom, I was in a different state. When I tried my
Mm-hmm.
first ice bath, Wim Hof with the Wim Hof trainer, it was the same thing. After 3 4 minutes in the ice, you feel like you were a little high. I really
Mm-hmm.
like how you bring that into your sports, and how you utilize meditation, and how it can be applied to your day-to-day life. Can you talk about some of the challenges you face,
Yeah,
and how what do you do to overcome that?
yeah. I think. Well, I think honestly, in most sport, probably not just sport and life in general, business, anything where you're striving to accomplish something, um, there's more failure than there is actual success. And I think in society nowadays, there's such a culture of celebrating the success, which kind of a shame because it really is not, it's kind of a fallacy. And I think it's really easy for people to think that things are all easy when you look at people that are really successful, or then you compare it to yourself where you're like, well, they're having so much success, I'm having so much failure. I think there needs to be a much a different mindset around failure and learning to celebrate your failures. And you just learn so much from them. I mean, I've had so much difficulty really in the past 2 years. Um, and those difficult times have been such a teacher for me. And the difficulties still continue to be a teacher for me. I feel like you learn so much more from that than you do from just flat out success. I mean, I was very fortunate that I had a lot of success in my first year of racing anything in the Formula Ford. And last year was a complete opposite. My first year in GB3 was, I mean, some people from the outside perspective, results wise, would have said it was a complete failure. I finished dead last in the series, dead last in most races. So a lot of that stuff is out of my control. And, but, it was, yeah, it was really challenging mentally, physically, uh, just very difficult. Put me in a really, really challenged my faith and all the stuff we're kind of talking about now. Um, you know, I think for me, when I'm facing difficult things, it's you either have a choice, and you have a choice to either kind of be in denial of it and suffer, or you can choose to accept it and find the teacher in it and keep persevering and push harder. Um, and that's something that I learned from Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. He said something: ultimately, all suffering is the denial of the present moment, and I think that's so true. If you just accept where you are and what's going on now, and understand that it's happening for a reason. I'm a big believer everything happens for a reason. There's a lesson in it or some sort of experience that you're needing to have. That in hindsight, years, months, weeks from now, you'll look back and be grateful for it. Um, I think for me, when I'm facing a challenging situation, that's just a really comforting thought to go back to for me, is that everything happens for a reason, and that it's not just uh, like some evil world that I'm living in where it's unfair and uh, bad things are just happening to me, and why me? And I just tend to be like, this is happening, and yeah, it sucks, and it's okay to allow myself to be frustrated in the moment, and allow myself to have those moments when difficult situations happen, to be upset and to be sad, but then trying, and this is all I'm still learning, and this is still a process for me, but learning to let go of that. So feel it and then let it go and move on. Um, and then just, I think just coming back to doing a review, and if you have a difficult time, what was it from it that I could have learned? What was it that I grew stronger at? What is it that I can grow stronger from this? How can I, if I come across this situation again, how can I do better? And I think it's always just that process of looking at a difficult situation and seeing how you can become better out of it. And then also having patience too. I think, things, you don't, first of all, you don't always get what you want. You always get what you need. And in addition to that, things don't always come in your time. They come in cosmically the time it's meant to. So I think you have to have patience too, and a faith that if you're putting in the work, eventually results will come, and not getting frustrated that, you know, I had times last year where, I really dug in deep, was working, training harder than I've ever worked. And I was just like, man, I'm just getting like pounded here.
Mm.
I don't understand why I'm not getting any results. And I just had to learn to develop a real patience and ask myself, do you love what you're doing? And then, yes. And trying to bring myself back to, well, I guess you really have to learn to separate your joy from results, and make your joy much more connected to the process of what you're doing. I think for me, in terms of motorsport, you have to be like, do you love winning and do you love being successful? Um, or do you love motorsport itself? And I think for most drivers, they would say motorsport. And of course, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I don't like winning. I think any person in sport is competitive, and that's just part of our nature. But I think decoupling your joy from results and bringing it back to the joy of actually driving and competing, and the process of just becoming this elite athlete is such a beautiful thing. And it's something that, the most successful people in sport always look back at their journey and they're like, you know what, I just wish I had enjoyed it more. Because once you get to that pinnacle, yes, it's great, but it's actually the whole process was the gift of it. The gift was in the process. And so I think for me, just, when things are difficult, as trying as it is, trying to be like, just have fun. And I think it's something that you hear parents tell their kids all the time in sports, is like, just have fun. And you think like, oh yeah, okay, like whatever, have fun. Yeah, of course. But like, I'm trying to compete here. But the irony there is that honestly, when you're having fun, you're usually doing better. And you could say that when you're doing well, it's easier to have fun, which, okay, maybe. But I think there's some sort of allowing yourself to enjoy it. I find when I'm driving, the times where I'm like really trying to drive well, versus the times where I'm just going out and just like letting it happen and enjoying, being like, shit, I'm here at Silverstone. Like, this is, I'm driving on Silverstone right now. What a gift. This is like a historic track that I've been driven by so many people all over the world. Like, just taking the opportunity, like, wow, this is incredible. Just trying to take yourself into the present moment and out of the story of what you're doing and into the actual moment. I'm here on track driving this sick machine going super fast. What a gift. And I think that practice of bringing yourself back to that is what helps me a lot. And then ultimately just having faith in your journey and where you're going, and really believing that you're going to get to where you're going. I'm a really strong believer in manifestation and affirmations. And if you don't believe you're going to get there, why should anyone else? And you're going to have so many people along the way that don't believe in what you're doing, especially for me. You know, I'm 28 years old. People think I'm crazy for having started this sport so late and believing that I can achieve so much. And, you know, for me, I just don't think it's crazy. Like, I have such a strong belief that anyone can do anything, and just believe in yourself. And key is to really envision yourself being there. A practice that I'm doing right now is every time I wake up and go to bed, I try to go to bed envisioning, doing a visualization of myself where I want to be. For me, that's being in Formula One, winning a race, winning a championship. Try to have these visualizations and trying to make it as vivid as possible and fall asleep to that, wake up to that. And because that just naturally, subconsciously puts you into the mind state of that person you want to be. And then when you're having difficult times, you can just be like, you know, everyone's had difficult times. Lewis Hamilton's had difficult times. You know, all these Schumachers had difficult times. All the greats, Max Verstappen's had difficult times. They still continue to have difficult times. And I think that's another important thing, is that, you know, we look at the superstars of sport, business, anything, any successful people, and we think that they're just perfect people and that everything is perfect and they do everything right and there's no mistakes and they don't have any self-doubt. You know, I listened to a podcast by Lewis Hamilton. He's won 7 world championships, and he still asks himself, like, he still has self-doubts. He's still like, can I do this? Am I good enough? Like, I think coming back to realizing, not trying to compare yourself to this impossible ideal, where understanding that even these people that you're looking up to are just human beings, and they have the same exact natural human condition that we're in ourselves. And I think that's, you know, I think for me, I think that's a real gift of being older. Is there's such a value in the maturity and perspective you get on life. That's really like a superpower, honestly. And yeah, I think that's just all that stuff combined is kind of how I deal with the difficult times. And it doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean I'm always perfect at it every day. I'm just trying to be, you know, this much better every day, and have that, you know, have that compound interest on just being that much better every day, trying different stuff, adding different stuff to my routines. And yeah, and the results will come at some point.
Wow, that's a really beautiful share, Sean. It's like
Thanks.
you have faith in you, faith in the process, faith in the universe, and you try your best to your capacity, and you believe it can be applied to life itself. In any, these principles are fundamental. I think for anyone to achieve their goal, it's really beautiful, incredible. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I'll add too is, like, you know, I think motorsport itself can be seen as a very individualistic sport, but it really is a team sport. And you know, you have your team you race with, but you also have your own kind of personal team that you end up naturally building in the sport, whether it's your manager, personal trainer, driver coaches, advisors. And for me, I'm super grateful. I've been surrounded by people that really believe in me and really believe in where I'm going. And that's also super important because, you know, they say it takes a tribe to raise a child. And I'd really believe, like anything in life, it takes a team. And so we can talk about all this stuff and like be like self-belief and, all, and yes, that's super important, but it's also super important to have people surround yourself with people that believe in you. So when you're having those self-doubts, they can have your back to push you back into that powerful mind state of like, no, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. We believe in you. We believe in what you're doing. And we're going to make this happen. And, but not only that, to also like guide you and be like, you know, this is where we can be better and you can be better here. So it's just, you know, it's all these things combined, that end up driving that self-belief in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's the epitome of a high performing mindset. That's especially in a competitive place, whether it's motorsports or even my favorite sport to play and watch is soccer. Where because yesterday, you live in the UK. There was
Mm-hmm.
the FA Cup final between Manchester City and Manchester United, and Manchester City is they won all the global competitions last year. They won the Premier League this year, and they were the front runners, the favorites to win the final. But Manchester United, on the other hand, they had a really shitty season. The manager did not know if he's gonna be sacked or have another season. So, but still, they managed to push them, get up from everything from the past and just look into the moment. And they beat one of the greatest teams ever. It's really really powerful that you
Mm-hmm.
say. And I also like the fact that how you have other people. You're humble enough to not say that it's all you, but also you have other forces working for you. So you have come up to a place where the universe has gifted you some great mentors, great people
Mm-hmm.
that believe in you, your friends, family, colleagues. It's really powerful. But also another thing I've seen is another spark some people tend to have sometime is when the world doesn't believe in you. Like that is like the other end of the spectrum, right? When the world, you are all alone, right? Imagine there are some saints, great stories of saints that you know they were abandoned by their parents. They grew up I forget his name. It was an Indian saint. He was found in a garbage collection space, but he rose up through divine intervention to be a great saint. So sometimes not everyone has that. Accountability is really powerful to have in business, in whatever thing you're doing. But sometimes I think it's super powerful when when you can, when you feel all alone, when you see the world is not going against you,
Mm-hmm.
the world is going against you. How do you bring that internal power and belief so that you can attract, using
Yeah.
manifestation, the forces, the people, the circumstances? So yeah, it's life is a crazy thing. Like, and another thing you mentioned that whenever we're facing, we like, oh, I'm struggling. People are very local. Like, obviously, if you don't have an expanded consciousness, you're only thinking about you and not the universe. But everyone has their own struggles and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
You, Lewis Hamilton, whether you are a top there, everyone has some form of struggle. But I find it very healing when I know that it's suffering is a human condition. It's a
Yes.
global condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are all sort of moving towards moving somewhere. Life, death, process, love, hate, and this weird but beautiful game. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. And the suffering is really, it's, you could describe it as an uncomfortableness. And all it's doing, it serves its purpose is to push you. If you weren't uncomfortable somewhere, it wouldn't push you away from it. And so sometimes the suffering serves its purpose to push you towards the good. to be like a message of being like, there's a lesson in this, or this isn't meant for you, to push you and make you uncomfortable enough to want to make a change, to want to do something different. And yeah, it's important. And you touched on like the feeling of the motivator of like the world is against you. I think everything is perspective, and it's important to take perspective on everything, because there is that situation where you could be like, everything is against me, I'm alone, and you can kind of crumble under that. Or you can also choose to use that as a motivator. A lot of great athletes or successful people in the world have used that as a motivator. For me, I oftentimes do feel like there's things are circumstances are against me. A lot of people don't believe in what I'm doing, um, while also having that parallel faith of like the universe is always doing what's best for me. But I think it's still a powerful motivator in being like, you know what, I'm just gonna, I wanna, I'm gonna prove you wrong, and it's not because I don't like you, but it's just because I want you. I want to change. I guess I'll touch on this real quick. Is a lot of what my motivator in this sport is. I was told in my ceremony when that racing was one of my passions. I was told racing is your passion, and there'll be an opportunity, a door that opens for you in life when you ultimately have the choice to walk through it. And if you choose to walk through it, it will be uh, perceived by you as a self-serving path, but it'll actually be in the service of others. And as long as every day you put your best into it, you'll not only bring light into your life, but into those around you. And I think a lot of what I'm doing in sport is just kind of a metaphor of, is just one way of bringing light and enlightenment to this new earth that's here, to myself, to those around me. And it's a lot of this is strangely, um, what I'm doing right now is kind of a practice in spirituality that just happens to be through motorsport in a way. And I'll kind of explain that in the sense that I'm doing something that's very untraditional, that's seen as impossible, and that's contrary to my spiritual belief that anything is possible. And so by me going on this motorsports journey and sharing, the good times, bad times, and hopefully I'm able to spread the mess and have, hopefully get to Formula One or wherever I get to. But just through my journey and perseverance, at least changing some people's perspective on what's possible and what's not, and empowering people to follow their dreams fearlessly and passionately. And because I'm just such a strong believer, everyone has a gift in this world that they're meant to share. And ultimately, by following your passion, you think it's like a selfish thing, but when you're truly following your passion, it's a gift for everyone else too. Everyone loves watching someone do their passion, whether it's someone who's wonderful at music, playing the guitar. They're just passionately playing the guitar the way they love to, but we love listening to it. Watching an artist paint and seeing their finished product, that's just a byproduct of their passion. And we go to museums just to witness this stuff. So there's whatever this architecture, whatever it is, there's always something. I mean, that's why people love sports. People love watching sports because it's just people that are passionate. I mean, look at football, soccer, for example, motorsport. I mean, in concept is such a silly thing. Like, it's just someone kicking around a ball and passing a ball to a different person and putting it into a net. Ours is just driving a car around in circles. Like it, but it's just, we are so inherently attracted to passion. And I think by witnessing someone who's passionate doing what they are, it's almost like a connection to the source. And so that's why it's so powerful. And I just want to do this because it's, for a personal thing too. I want to prove to myself that anything is possible. I want to reaffirm my belief in my spirituality on this path that I'm on, but also try and spread some seeds to those along the way.
Wow. It's you're having second and third order consequences of your own action. You're not only doing it for you, but others are getting inspired. People who have might have less faith in themselves might see what you're doing and develop the courage, the inspiration. Inspiration is a really really powerful thing. Yeah, I sometimes I get when I read the work of others, the great things they have done. The people that did not have the best of conditions, but still they were able to rise through the challenges. And you're doing it, and inspiring others. And also your background. Your father is from Pakistan and your mother is American, correct? So you
Hmm.
come from a multi-ethnic background. It's really wonderful. Yeah. So and
Yeah, I think.
mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah,
go
no, go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I just a lot of what I'm doing, I'm hoping this kind of touches back on like back what we were talking before about the difficulties, and I guess something that came to head, a lot of things that remind me in the difficult times. Like I'm have this documentary that's coming out and we're covering like the season, and the first two events have been really tough, and I've been really open about it and sharing. And so in these difficult times too, it's also like a reminder to myself, because it's important to share those for me personally, to have these difficult times so I can share those with other people and be relatable to people that are having difficult times, because you don't want to be like, it's so hard, spiritually. People, like, you could talk about Jesus Christ and like what a wonderful person, but he was like so ideal, and it's like so hard sometimes to relate to someone that's so perfect and everything's
Mm.
going right. And I think it's important to have difficult times in your life, because everyone's going to have difficult times, and it's just about being inspiring others, because they're like, well, it wasn't just easy, like he was also going through difficult times, nothing just came. And so making it, that's just another layer of making that inspiration more actionable, I guess, for them, because it's not, it's just harder, I guess, to make excuses than to just to be like, well, everything was just, he was just lucky and everything just worked out for him or her or whoever it is. So yeah, and I think, everyone's redeemable. Everyone's redeemable. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but obviously very spiritual, and but I do love things about all these different religions. And Moses, for example, the story of Moses, I think, is really beautiful, because Moses went into exile from Egypt, and he was, had this, was raised like a prince, and he murdered someone and then went into exile, and yet God still found him redeemable, and he still ended up doing these amazing things. And I think it's just for anyone out there that hasn't, even if you're not doing right now what you want to be doing, or you've done things that you're not proud of, I think it's important not to make that your story. I am a
Mm.
true believer that every moment is a new moment to change, and you truly can be a different person every moment, and it's just a choice. And you don't have to be the past decisions you've made in this current moment. And you're always redeemable. You're always able to move on from those past things and not let that be just a mark on you that is the story of you forever. So, yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's one of the core messages. I'm working on a book. Speaks about how do you reinvent yourself from moment to moment, and it's very similar to what you're saying. Because we tend to get lost in stories from our
Hmm.
past memories. Our subconscious stores a lot of events that has happened, and a lot of the times it's not in our control, right? When you were a kid growing up, what's happening to you around you, it's not in your control. So we have a lot of stories packed up in our subconscious, and unless you get some sort of awakening or about that, know what's happening to you internally, like the sages say, know thyself. A lot of the times we don't know what's happening to us internally, our internal state basically, right? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling happy? Am I excited? What is my body going through? We are always in the story, but once we learn how to detach, okay, I'm not, I'm struggling right now. I've been trying at this thing hard and hard and hard, so much, keep putting so much effort, but not able to get the result. So maybe my body is not in the right state. I might need to step out, relax a little, breathe a
Hmm.
little, maybe go out and look in the sky, walk around, talk to people, and then come back to it. Not because it's, at the end of the day, this is the body is, the ultimate machine. You know, once we
Hmm.
know ourselves, we have, the path is much more clear. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love your message, and I'm sure it's going to inspire, future generations and people who are, willing to get into the sport. I know
Hmm.
it could be a bit expensive, it could be a lot of challenges ahead, and you're doing it, at a place, at a time where people are sometimes doubting you, but you are stepping into the unknown. You have this this self belief, which I really admired about you. And
Thanks.
yeah. So what's your what are your future endeavors right now? Where do you see yourself going ahead in the next 5 years?
Um, well, before we get to that, can I just touch on something you said? Because I think it's really important and it reminded me of something. It's about like knowing yourself. And you said
Sure.
also sometimes, you're trying really, really hard. And sometimes you step back from it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really important because that's been a personal lesson for me as well. That it's really easy when things aren't going how you want them to be going to work harder and harder and harder and just keep working harder. And it's really easy to kind of burn yourself out that way. And it's really counterintuitive, but sometimes the best thing to do is to just take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the thing you want to do least because you think that if you work harder, it'll come better. But I've often found, like in my sport, sometimes I've been working so hard and things aren't happening. I just need a week. I just need a week, step back, not do anything with what I'm doing, and then come back to it with a fresh mindset. And sometimes it comes better. And I think there's valuable lesson in that for me. Like this year has been a lot about balance. Like last year, I worked so hard. You can kind of get lost in the work and lose the passion. And I think balance is super, super key and it's different for everyone. So you have to know yourself to find what that balance is. And it takes trial and error to figure out what balance works for you. But I think having balance in life, yeah, working hard, but I think like work hard, play hard. It's important to work hard towards what you want to achieve, but also step back, also enjoy other things that bring you joy and make you laugh, spend time with friends, family, uh, do some other thing that you're passionate about is super important. And yeah, and I think we talk about knowing yourself, and I think it's important to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. I feel very grateful to plant medicine because it's brought me such an awareness of myself. I always compare it to like wearing a different pair of glasses that put the vision inwards. And I think while that's a great gift, it's also a great responsibility because when you have greater awareness of yourself, it's very easy to be hard on yourself. It's really easy to do because it's true. Ignorance is bliss because when you're ignorant to the way you are, um, and what you do unconsciously, it's easy to be let that not make you upset. And so like the more awareness you gain of yourself, the more awareness you gain of things you're not necessarily doing that you should be doing, or that would be good for you, or you're doing things that aren't good for you. And I think in that way, it's very easy to be hard on yourself and kind of get into this downward spiral mentally about the person you are. And the mind, I think, naturally wants to focus on the negative things and not so much on the positive. And that's a practice that takes conscious effort for me to like, instead of always focusing, if I'm doing a simulation run or something on track or something in training, it's very easy to be like, well, what did I not do well? And instead be like, you know what, I did A, B, C, D, E really well. And, F and G were not great, but okay, we'll work on that. But good job. Like having that self talk and self empowerment, being like, you did great there, dude. Like that was awesome. You did 5 out of 7 things great, rather than just being like, you didn't do those 2 things good at all. So that was shit. And really learning to treat yourself like a child is so important. It's so true. It's something I learned in ceremonies from different people, is treat yourself like a child. If you had a child that was learning to walk, they're falling 99 times out of 100 before they can walk a little bit. And imagine if you as an adult were just like crap poo-pooing on that kid for being like, wow, you're so bad at walking. Like, how could you do it? But that's not what parents do. When they do get it right, they're like, wow, that was great. And when they don't get it wrong, it's like, come on, you can do it. I believe in you. It's like having those uplifting things in the difficult times that bring you up, rather than having the down talk or the bad things. And that's the balance and the conscious effort it takes, which is super, super important. And it's not easy to do because I just think culturally and naturally as humans, we don't do that enough. And that takes effort. I see kids that, in my series, they finish second in a race and they're so upset. And it's like, sometimes I believe you're just not, maybe you weren't just meant to win that day, but you did so many things great to finish in front of so many drivers to finish second. And I get it. You're bummed you didn't finish first, but allow yourself to have some joy in it, and allow yourself to be happy and proud for yourself that you did so well and all these different things. And when things don't go right, don't be so hard on yourself, which is a big thing for me. People always tell me I'm too hard on myself, and I'm learning this, and it takes a lot of conscious effort, but it's just about empowering yourself and when you're not doing something right, and not being too hard on yourself, having some balance, being easy with yourself. And if you have a plan tomorrow, you want to wake up and you want to meditate, and the next day you wake up and you don't meditate, instead of making it the storyline of like, oh, I'm so fucking, like, I'm such a shit person, like I'm not doing what I said I was going to do, it's being like, okay, you know what? I wanted to meditate today. It didn't work out. I didn't have time for it. I chose not to do it. Whatever the circumstance is, that's okay. I'm going to be easy with myself. And then the next day I'm going to do it. And while it's important to take the actions to actually correct it, the balance and the easiness with yourself is just as important, because if you're being too hard on yourself, you're not allowing it to flow as much, and you're actually attracting in more of that unease, difficulty, than you are bringing in the flow. So yeah, sorry to take that little tangent, but I really like what you were saying
It's
about knowing
you.
yourself is
That's
super important.
super important, and important message that you've shared. Allow yourself to fail. Learn how to calibrate, and also take a little time off to rest and come back. Yeah, it's a really powerful message. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. But getting back to what you were talking about, next 5 years, I kind of have in 5 years now, my goal is to be in Formula One. The more near term, I think, is kind of unclear. Exactly. I think kind of things I've just learned to, have that vision of where I want to be, and the destination in between kind of be unclear. And I've learned to be okay with that. Because, life just works in such crazy ways. There's no way you could possibly know exactly the path you're going to be on. Some people know more than others, but I think for me, it's kind of like, I know where I want to be. What It's all dependent on the experiences and what's happening now. So, I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing next year, to be honest. I would like to be doing something higher, whether that's FI, F3, FI2, FREC up, whatever it is. I don't know. It's completely dependent on how this year goes. I'm just kind of along for the journey and doing everything, just focusing on the present moment. What can I do this week, this today? What, just focusing on the next races and keeping that vision really nearsighted, because I know in the present moment, if I'm doing everything I can, everything will just kind of um, unfold. I like this parable that I heard, and it's about this boy in the forest. He's going through the forest trying to find his way home, and like a really strong fog rolls through, and all of a sudden he doesn't know how to get home, and he can't see the path anymore. And then so he gets really scared, and then all of a sudden this old man, he sees this old man walking through, and he sees the boy, and he comes up and he says, "Oh, are you okay?" And the boy says, "No, um, I'm trying to get home, but I don't know how to get through the forest. I can't see." And the man says, "Well, can you see your next step?" And the boy says, "Yes." And he says, "Well, that's all you need to do. It's
Mm.
that over and over and over again. It's just taking that next step. And eventually you find yourself out of the fog and you find your way home." So for me, it's just like, God, I have no idea like where I'm going to be. Even when I look at like last year, when I came in last year in GB3, I was like, I'm going to do 1 year of GB3 and then I'm going to do something different. And then this year here, I'm doing GB3 again.
Mm.
So it's just like, I don't know what life's going to throw at me right now. I know where my goals are, which is in 5 years, I want to be in Formula One for sure. Um, Hopefully before that. But even next year, I'm not even too sure what I'm going to be doing in terms of racing.
Mm. That's really that's a really humble way to not force yourself, or just be in the moment and see where life takes you.
hmm
Yeah.
I'm such a strong believer. You cannot live your life in such a rigid way. I think, everything is ebb and flow. Everything, we breathe in and out. You look at the ocean, the waves, there's tides in and out. The moon phases up, sun up and down. There's just everything is cyclical. Everything is not straight linear lines. Everything is very, you know, curvy and windy, and the web of life and how it works is so complex. Like, you couldn't it's so important to allow yourself to flow with what the universe is giving you, because the universe, I believe, is extremely benevolent and wants to give you what you want, but it's not going to give you it in the way that you think. It's the way it works is so complex. You have to be willing to go with what it's giving you. And there's another parable of, like, I don't know if I'm getting this exactly right, but it's basically like this guy's on a boat in a storm, and like he's stuck in the storm and his boat is sinking, and he prays to God. He's like, "God, I'm such a strong believer in you. I know that, I have ultimate faith in you that you're going to save me, and just please provide me, like, show me, come down and provide me this miracle that you're going to save me, and please, like, come down and save me." And then along the boat passes by and they say, "You're going to save me." He says, "No, God's going to come. I have ultimate faith. God's going to save me." And then, a helicopter flies by and says, like, "Oh, can we help you?" And he's like, "No, God's going to save me. I know he's coming. I have ultimate faith." And then eventually the boat sinks and he dies. And it's like, and then as the boat sinking, he's like, "God, why have you forsaken me?" And he's like, "Didn't you see the boat and the helicopter I sent you?" Like, he had in his mind that what he wanted was like God coming down from the heavens and floating him out and taking him. But he was so rigid that he didn't allow himself to go with, like, it was ultimately the universe was trying to give him what he wanted, but he was so rigid, he didn't allow it to happen. So it's like, it's so important to allow that fluidity and allow yourself to flow with whatever life is giving you.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful state of mind to be in. That, and also that is, I think, the part of the feminine, right? The feminine aspect of
Mm,
life, flowing and moving with the wind and the ocean, and also having the balance to ground yourself, and when the time needs to be, focus and move with purpose. but at the same time not forget the feminine aspect of life. So the yin and yang, the masculine and the feminine. It's a
Hmm.
really, it's a I think living in that state will help you manifest and achieve your dreams at a much higher rate. And yeah, and yeah, thank you for your time, Sean. I think you are much more wiser than a 28-year-old guy. It's like I'm talking to someone who have lived. Yeah, you'll be a great teacher to many people in your field, and the younger guys that are coming up, and anyone who is looking to have this belief that oh, I'm this and that and this is not possible. You bring a lot of faith and energy to that. I really love that aspect about you. So yeah, before we conclude these conversations, is there anything I left out, any other message that you have for my viewers? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I just, well, thank you, Shamim, for giving me this opportunity to share my story and speak with you. And just really grateful to you, and hope that this has been empowering, and hope that by me sharing this stuff, maybe planted some seeds for some people. Um, I feel like the only message I want to give is I would just encourage people to, you know, the world that we're in right now, there's a lot of change happening and a lot of uncomfortableness, and I think just really taking the time, time is such a valuable resource, and it's
Mm.
not valued enough, and using that time wisely to really empower yourself and develop spiritually is super important. And you know make choosing to build yourself up is the best gift you could ever give yourself, because it'll just make everything work so much better. And just start choosing to put yourself first, and be be that number one person for yourself, and choose to make those decisions that empower yourself. And I'm a true believer that if you're doing something from your heart, that's for yourself, it's always for the benefit of other people as well, even if it's not, you don't see it that way at first. So yeah, just take that time. Such a valuable resource. Listen to podcasts like this are so great. And listen to on your car drives, whatever it is, any small time you get, and when you may only listen to music, which is great. I love music and stuff, but like just try and add in 5 minutes here and there, and add a little bit more all the time, because it's just the spiritual journey, the the self-help, self-growth journey is such a beautiful one, and it's so empowering, and just makes life so much more enjoyable. So that's the only message I have, and thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you all.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. That's another beautiful message. Use your time wisely for your spiritual. Do not forget your spiritual purpose. Yeah, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your stories, Sean. And I wish you the best of luck. And I'm
Thank you.
positive that you will reach your goal one day. And hope to see you soon in real life. I know it's been a while.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
either Costa Rica, the US. The world is small. Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, brother.
exactly.
I wish you all the
Thank you,
best.
brother. I appreciate you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.